Okay, now that we're finished with our second round of highlights, I am going to protect my work with a sealer dull coat. There's many different brands out there. I keep going back to Krylon Matte Finish. I used to use Tester's dull coat, but after a long time, you realize that you just get, they come in them little short cans, and you spend $5 and just continuously goes. This lasts a lot longer, so you just give it a quick spray. You don't got to go overboard. Just a quick spray, and I'm gonna let that dry naturally, and I will be back with you. Okay, with the magic of a video, the sealer has been has dried. Okay, now the next step, what we're going to use is we're going to use chalk pastels. Now there are many different brands of chalk pastels on the market. I prefer the Prismacolor brand, but I suggest you experiment with whatever brand. You experiment with different brands, because depending on what sealer you use is depending on how light or how dark the pastels will dry. Okay, now what I like to do is I take my hobby knife and I will scrape some off on like a piece of paper. I hear people say they use the sandpaper stuff. I don't use the sandpaper. I feel that that's a waste of sandpaper. Just doing that. So what I do is I just scrape some off. I've already scraped some off. I'll show you my palette and move the camera real quick. There's my palette right there. Of There's my palette right there of chalk pastels. I use like a rusty color, kind of like a burnt sienna and a raw sienna, and I just kind of mix them. Now you use a really fine, a flat brush, but use a smaller one. If you're doing a bigger bust, you would use a bigger brush, but I generally try to use the same type of brush, the size brush that I'm working on with for the project. Okay, so what you do is it's kind of like applying makeup. I don't know if the camera is going to be able to see this or not, but what you do is you just basically apply some of the pastels underneath like the eyes and the crevice of the cheek area. This is one of the tricks I was telling you about. There's a couple more tricks I'm going to show. If you get a little bit too much, just take your finger and kind of like just blend it, or a cotton swab. I'm actually out of cotton swabs at the moment, so I have to use my finger. Blow off the excess. This is a really good technique to punch in shadows and in areas where you wouldn't necessarily would not have any shadows with just an airbrush. I used to not use pastels, and then a friend of mine that's a master figure painter, he showed me about them. Like I said, I don't know if the camera is able to see this because it's so little, but I'm going to try to do it a little bit more extravagantly just so I can show you guys. This is a great technique. Pastels is just great, if you do it right. You don't want to apply them too heavily, because you can always add more. So you just want to go in and just go into the crevices and just blend them in as much as you have. Actually, I found a cotton swab, so I'm in luck. Just kind of like just remove the excess. This is a great technique. I like this technique a little bit better than putting shadows in with an airbrush, because you have a lot more control. As you can see, it's You're getting in. I'm gonna try to see if I can show the camera. See if you can see and look. You can see it's around the eyes, the cheeks, the collarbone. You know, it's all in the areas that it should be, and that's the key. Is you want it to be in the recessed areas. You don't want it to be like, you know, all over the place, because then it just, you know, becomes a mess. Using pastels is great to get in with the in between fingers, like as I'm showing you. Hopefully the camera can pick up on this. If not, I apologize, but trust me on that. It's really helpful. Like I said, if you get a little bit out of the lines or whatever, just brush it off with a cotton swab. There's another part that I do. Some painters, when they do their pastel work, they, you know, seal it, and then they say that, you know, they're pretty much done with the face or whatever, or they're done with that particular part. I have one more technique that I use, and I will show you guys. One thing about painting figures is, you know, you can be fast at it or you can be slow. I prefer, you know, to just take my time. You know, sometimes it might take me, you know, a few days to complete a piece, or in some cases a couple hours. Just really depends on what it is. But like I said, most of the time I like to take my time, and, you know, make sure I'm doing it right. But to be honest with you, I am just showing you in a way to do this. There is really no, you know, right or wrong way to paint anything, as long as you're happy with the results. That's all that matters. So if you're happy, then that's great. Me, I'm basically, what I'm doing here, what the purpose of this video is, just to kind of get you guys started into painting figures. Just to give you a guide to go by. Like I said, you necessarily do not have to copy every single thing I do, because I'm actually, you know, I'm not the best at this in the world. I'm good, but I'm not the best. There's a lot of figure painters out there that are really good, but, you know, I have been doing this for a very long time, and I've won lots of awards. I've been in contest after contest, and it's a fun thing to do. So I'm basically just passing my knowledge on to you guys, because it's always good to share with people what you know. Okay, now as you can see, it's got some more shadows. I'll try to move the camera so you can see what I'm talking about. As you can see, it's got more shadows in the recessed areas. It's starting to really take shape. You look at the hands and the crevices. It's, you know, it's the point where now where you can actually start, possibly, if you wanted to, start painting like the hair or the jacket or whatever, to give the piece something to contrast to. Sometimes when you're painting a figure, if you paint and you're just looking at skin tones, sometimes it's kind of hard to tell how your skin tones look unless you have another color for it to contrast to. Me personally, like I said, I have another method that I do, and I'm going to show you that, guys. Like I said, this is the way I do it. So with that being said, I'm gonna protect my work. Just a light coats. You don't got to drown the piece, just very lightly. Alright, I'm going to let that dry, and I'll see you guys for part 3.